I'm curious your thoughts on, the polarization that was present in the league, maybe like it never had been before. I mean, there have been polarizing topics in the past, certainly about women's basketball, but I'm wondering if you kind of feel like the polarization in some ways was maybe a necessary sort of evil for growth, or maybe you would frame that differently. Just curious about your thoughts on that, given the extra eyeballs that we know based on the ratings and the successful season that the league had, did in fact take place.
It's such a double-edged sword because you want all of this excitement and growth in the WNBA, and you want all of it, and it's something that we have been scratching and clawing for years. I think, and I can speak for a lot of WNBA fans, a lot of WNBA media, it just happened so quick and so fast. It just felt like you kind of had whiplash there for a second. And I guess I don't have a problem with the polarization or the conversation being around Caitlin Clark, or having that be, for lack of better words, like your gateway drug into the WNBA. I don't have a problem with that, but I wish it was because she was such a great basketball player. Caitlin Clark is a baller. She is a hooper. And I wish that was more of the conversation surrounding it, rather than about race or about carrying these themes over from Iowa. She is a professional athlete now. Why can't we just have a normal conversation about basketball? It just didn't feel like a normal conversation was ever happening. And that was my issue with it. I was so happy that people were sitting courtside and being able to see other players if you did get this introduction because of Caitlin Clark, because then Kelsey Mitchell is now a hard fought after free agent because she was playing alongside Caitlin Clark. Everybody's bag is going to go up because people know about Caitlin Clark and tuned in because of that. I guess I just wish it was more like how we talk about NBA rookies and NBA players coming in, and we are breaking down the X's and O's of their game and talking about what they contribute to their team on the floor. I don't feel like those conversations were happening enough for me. And that's where I hope when we go into year 2 of Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark era, of this new WNBA wave, that we can focus more on the hoop. That's what my goal is.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to see, because I felt like, in a way, you see silly topics brought up, on, I don't even want to name anybody, but there are some ridiculous topics that go out there with any major kind of main stage sport. So on the one hand, you're getting this mix of, wow, we're talking about the WNBA on these platforms. And now at the same time, oh, wow, this is a really silly topic and has nothing to do with, like what you just mentioned, that Caitlin Clark's a hooper, etc.
Yeah. And I mentioned before we started recording that I am writing a book on the history of women's basketball. And of course, history always repeats itself throughout any sport, any league, or anything like that. And what I'm finding is that, in the 70s, they were just so happy anybody was just speaking of women's basketball. Even if it was in the corner of the newspaper, they were cutting it out, framing it. They were so happy. Now we have gotten to a point where, okay, we're here. We've been here for a while. We have broken many records. Millions of people are tuning into our games. We're not going to settle for the crumbs anymore. Now we have enough storylines and enough star power where you can talk about us as a league, as women's basketball players, not as this charity case, not as this monolith. We have depth to those conversations. And I think that's what this season felt like. We went backwards and okay, now we're just back to talking about flagrant fouls and fights, or when the league is losing money, or it felt like we went backwards. So now we need to push it back forward and say, okay, yeah, there's a lot more to us than this one singular thing.
Curious with that. I'm sorry, Justin, last follow-up here. I'll throw it to you. Speaking of carrying that momentum forward, I'd just be curious to get your quick thoughts. I know it's a topic that has passed us by, but to get your perspective on the TV deal and the WNBA's involvement with that. Do you think that's just kind of crossing that milestone is kind of a key driver to that forward progress?
I had to agree with the legend Cheryl Miller, coming from someone who played in the 80s, who it was very rare to have games on TV. But she said, I don't think you asked for enough. Like, it still seemed a little less, or kind of settling for those crumbs, like I just mentioned. I want us to bet on WNBA and women's basketball, like, wholeheartedly. This is so much progress. But when you think about the dollar signs and how the WNBA, I think it was just announced, is the fastest growing brand in America right now. Like, we want all of the money. And how, I think the other thing that came across with that media deal that we still have questions surrounding is, where do the players get some of that? I think that's the big thing that is going to be swirling in the CBA. Hopefully once they sign a new one soon, is, okay, we see that the dollar signs are wrapped around this league, and okay, the players need some of that too. The players need to make sure they're making more money off of media deals, revenue, all of those things. So I think that's my next question. I'm like, okay, this is great with the media deal, but we need more. What else is going to come of it? But it's a good start.
Playing off that point, do you think Kathy Engelbert is the person to be leading this charge? I mean, I have been hypercritical of her. Everybody's told me, I just relax, take it easy, just give her a chance. But to me, I don't think she's up for the job. I think this league is hot. I think there's a lot of momentum. I agree with you. What that comment was about the media deal not being enough. And I just think some of her comments about how players are treated on social media, and then just in general taking advantage of this, I think, once in a lifetime opportunity to not only capitalize on just the previous rookie class, but what's upcoming with Paige Buckers and Juju Watkins and just the future. I don't think she's up for the job, in my opinion. And I don't know, I am concerned that there's going to be a lot of opportunities left on the table. But I'm in the minority. I've been told just to give her a chance. But am I just overreacting? Or that's all the WNBA experts that know way more than me. But in my gut, I just don't feel she's up for it.
Always hard to say if someone is up for it or not. And where I come from, she came in as commissioner 19. Up until this point, the WNBA did not have a commissioner. They've had presidents. This is a new position where she is the face of the league. So she has to she gets praised when it's doing well, but she also takes the brunt and gets pointed the finger at when it's not doing well. I think she did amazing things during the wobble and during COVID. And really, that was her first year really on the job. So I was saying, hey, this is great that we have somebody to point to say, what are we going to do? And there's somebody in position to make these moves happen. So I do think she's done some great things. But then on the other hand, when she does say those comments about, comparing the Caitlin Clark and the Angel Reese rivalry to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and how it's great for the league and all of these things, and undermining the situations and the experiences that especially the Black players in her league are going through, that doesn't sit right. And it doesn't matter what you or I think. The players have to feel like they are being represented well. And that is who has the ultimate decision and authority, I feel like, if Kathy is doing a well enough job. You also say, well, we want to praise her. She got these charter flights. Somehow, some way, it was real bumpy there, but we got the charter flights somehow. But was that only because of Caitlin Clark? Like, there's just so many things that you can be critical of. But I think first and foremost, I'm just happy that there is somebody in this position and is doing the best that she can. I do think that the spotlight is hot. The lights are really, really bright. And now I feel like these past couple years, she could have been sliding by. Now it's going to be a magnifying glass on every single move that she makes because of what you said. The future is coming. You have a Paige Beckers, a Juju Watkins, a Flage, and they are saying, okay, these are our demands. Are you going to meet them, or we're not going to play in your league because we don't really need your league? You know, that's what they could say. Now the tables are turned. Now you're having to rush in and make sure that it is this perfect league for the future to want to continue to grow and be a part of the league's legacy. So she feels the pressure. I know she does. I know she does, especially with the expansion teams. She's hoping you can get off her back now that these expansion teams have been announced. But it's a high pressure job. I'm not jealous. I don't want it. No thanks.
Yeah, I don't want it either. It just, to me, like Adam Silver, I think he plays, he comes off very professional, but he comes off as a fan. And I just think when you're a new league, I think there's a line that she is the face of the league. And I just feel like it comes off somewhat disingenuous to me. Like she's just running a company. The WNBA is more than just some corporate entity. I mean, we all love the game of basketball. And I just feel like the way she answers questions, I don't know. It just gives me a bad taste in my mouth, even though she has done a lot of good things for the W. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
but just
I understand
with
that.
the future, there are some concerns. Like you mentioned, the charter flights. I just think that's an automatic. Like that should be a foregone conclusion. That should have been handled a long time ago. If you're not able to give players that sustainable right, why you have a league? I mean, what are we doing this for if you're not going to give them just the top tier of what's happening? I think that's what's happening now with a lot of these teams getting a lot of more facilities. So I do think with the owners, they are turning the page in terms of giving the players the facilities they deserve. I think that is progressing. I think Engelbert has a lot to do with that too. So she does deserve props on that.